Joining us now is Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island. He is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee who signed that letter to the Attorney General today. Senator, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Your letter to the Attorney General gives him 2 weeks to deliver these documents. What happens if he doesn't?
Well, the House can move more or less immediately to a subpoena, and because they have their own members involved, I think they may be willing to do that. We have more complicated subpoena procedures in the Senate at 50-50, but that would be the next stop, would be to try to work through our procedures to get a subpoena as well.
As a former prosecutor yourself, do you see any reason why the Attorney General can't simply hand over those documents to you tomorrow?
No, he can. There may be things that would need to be blacked out in order to protect the anonymity of witnesses and things like that. I mean, ordinarily, if you're going to take a run at a member of Congress, you're not going to do so without predication. In fact, the department won't allow you to proceed without predication ordinarily. So you'd lay out the predication somewhere in those memos. And if there were witnesses who gave you that predication, you might want to protect them. So there are reasons to block certain parts of it. But, you know, I mean, a subpoena is usually released to the person who's subpoenaed at the end of the day. So that's certainly not very private. And, you know, the department wants to get a lot of people through the Senate. So if they start playing hardball with us, then, you know, good luck with your nominations.
Well, one position they're going to need to get confirmed is the one being vacated now by a Trump appointee, John Demers, who was apparently an assistant attorney general who may have had control over these subpoenas.
Yeah, well, we have to find that out. It's a little bit strange. I mean, ordinarily, these go before a special committee in the Department of Justice for investigations that touch on serious First Amendment concerns. If you want to run an investigation into a church, if you want to run an investigation into a news outlet, if you want to run an investigation against an elected official, you usually have to get special clearance. And so we'd be looking for the description of how that clearance was obtained, whether this was done as a national security matter within the National Security Division or a criminal matter. There's a lot that has not yet been answered. And one really big question in all of this is the role of the FBI. Ordinarily, these matters go through the FBI, and an FBI agent is directly involved in this. And so Director Wray, I think, has some questions to answer just as much as Barr does and Rosenstein does.
Let's imagine for a second that this information became public the day before Merrick Garland's confirmation hearing. What question would you have asked him about this?
Well, I'd have asked him a question very like the questions that I did ask him, which is, when are you going to open up the Department of Justice to start answering our questions and eliminate the policy we had under the Trump administration of no Democratic questions get answered and politically sensitive Republican questions get a special fast lane out of the FBI.
I want to also get your reaction tonight to Mitch McConnell basically saying if the Republicans get control of the United States Senate, they will not confirm any Biden-chosen Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, you know, the stunning part about that is that he's willing to say it out loud. You know, he might want to have that secret thought with him and his little cabal of elite Republican billionaire donors. But the fact that he's willing to say it out loud shows, first of all, how little respect they have for our ability to tangle with them and take them on for making an admission like that. And second, how just like plain and overt this is. I think he's playing to an audience of a very small group of big billionaire donors who have a plan to try to take over as much control of the United States government as they can. And their target is the Supreme Court. And Mitch will do anything in his power to hand the Supreme Court over as much as he can to that little donor cabal.
Now, he said that based on the possibility of the Republicans winning the Senate through elections in 2022. So that would block 2 years of potential Biden nominations to the Supreme Court. But the truth is, as Senate history shows, the Republicans could conceivably get control of the Senate next week. We have seen plane crashes and other forms of sudden deaths of senators.
Senators are mortal.
Yeah, what I served in the Senate. So we really are at all times a heartbeat away from Republican control. So presumably, if the Republicans got control of the Senate next month, it would apply right now. It would apply for the rest of the Biden presidency. No Supreme Court confirmations.
Look, the most important thing to Mitch McConnell is his little reclusive group of billionaire donors. And the most important thing to them is to control a Supreme Court that doesn't have to answer to the voters, so it will do what they want. And they tell it what to do with this whole little fleet of amici curiae that they send before the court on a regular basis. That is the most important political imperative that Mitch McConnell has. And I believe he will do essentially anything to get there. In fact, we've seen that he broke every possible rule, every norm, every precedent, everything in the Senate that stood in his way, he broke.
Are you hoping that Justice Breyer creates a vacancy on the Supreme Court this summer?
Well, now would be the right time. And if I believed it would do any good to say that, then I'd probably say that. But, you know, you get on the Supreme Court and you get those robes and you make your own decisions. And I don't know that senators trying to tell you what to do actually makes that decision easier rather than harder.
Well, let's just hope he considers what you just said to have. Let's hope he considers what you just said, that you might say it, but didn't actually say it, even though you did say it. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.